muscle functions. We're going to start out with the foreleg muscles of the cat. And again, cats obviously have a little different musculature than us. They still are mammals, but they are on all fours, so their forearm muscles are going to be just a little bit different. But for the most part, the ones that I've chosen are pretty much the same in both humans and cats. The first one is the spinal deltoid. The spinal deltoid, they'd be considered to be your delts, and they help with arm abduction, which is away from the body, flexion and medial rotation of the humerus. Then we have our biceps brachii, and biceps brachii are your biceps, what we would consider our biceps, and they flex the forearm at the elbow and rotate your hand laterally. Then we have our triceps, which are exact opposite of the biceps. The triceps, they're called triceps brachii. They extend the forearm at the elbow instead of flex. And then we have something called the brachioradialis, and the brachioradialis is going to be found in the lower arm area, and it helps flex your forearm at the elbow. You're going to notice that a lot of these muscles work together to actually perform the exact same function in the body. We are still in the forearm, and we have something called the flexor carpi ulnaris. And so these words are going to kind of make sense because we have ulna and we have our carpals. And so it helps abduct the hand, meaning that it's going to take the hand away from the body. Then we have something called a pronator teres, and when you pronate something, you're going to be rolling it in towards the midline. And so we're pronating the forearm. And then you have something called the acromiodeltoid, which helps, again, abduct the arm. Now, in the hind leg, we have a set of muscles that work together. They all do exactly the same thing, and they're called the quadriceps femoris, and we call them the quads. And so there are 4 different muscles that are all helping you extend the leg at the knee. The 4 muscles are called rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, vastus intermedius, and vastus medialis. We are going to be only identifying 3 out of the 4. This one is actually very hard to find in the cat, so we're going to kind of leave it off the list. But know that quad means 4, so there are 4 different quads in the leg. Then you've got your hamstrings, which are on the back of your leg, and all 3 exactly do the exact same thing. Just like the quads all have one function, so do the hamstrings, and all 3 help flex the leg and extend the thigh. And so the 3 hamstring muscles that are in on the posterior side of the leg are called the semimembranosus, semitendinosus, and biceps femoris. Then we have our gluteus maximus, which is basically our butt muscle, as you know most people call it, and that helps us extend the thigh. And then we have something called the tensor fascia lata, and around a muscle, as I've talked about, on some muscles they have something called a fascia that is above and beyond the epimysium. And so the tensor fascia lata is a fascia, so it's connective tissue, not muscle tissue, but it actually helps move different muscles. So it helps you abduct, take away from the midline, flex, and rotate the thigh medially. And then we have the gracilis. The gracilis is kind of a flap-like muscle that's going to cover other muscles, and it helps adduct the thigh, bring it back to the midline, flex and rotate the lower limb medially. Then you have your tibialis anterior. Tibialis, it's your part, or it's going to run along your tibia, and it helps with dorsiflexion of the foot. So plantar flexion is when you're going to point your toes downward, and dorsiflexion is when you're going to point your toes upward. And then we have the Achilles or calcaneal tendon. They call it the calcaneal tendon because it attaches to the calcaneus, the heel bone, and it is going to link the calcaneus to the gastrocnemius, which is your calf muscle. and it also is going to attach to the soleus. So what it's doing is it's allowing for them to perform their own functions. So it's basically just a helping tendon. But we know tendons are going to attach a muscle to a bone, and that's why I included it, because it's one of the larger tendons in the human body. Then we have our gastrocnemius, and gastrocnemius again is our calf muscle, and the gastrocnemius helps with plantar flexion, and plantar flexion is going to be pointing your toes down towards the ground, and it also helps with flexion of leg at knee. Then we have something called the sartorius, and the sartorius is again going to cover a group of muscles, and I'll show you guys this in the cat. But it flexes the leg at the thigh, it abducts the thigh, bringing away from the midline, rotates thigh laterally, and rotates leg medially, so it has a couple of different functions. And then finally, the adductor femoris, it's going to adduct the thigh, and it helps flex and rotate the lower limb medially.